A big question that's raised and oftentimes causes a lot of concern is from those who see no real justification for the ordination of women in Scripture. And there are several arguments that can be used. And we take those questions seriously at Fuller. We want students to explore and to wrestle with them. One of the things that fascinates me is the history of exegesis. I did my PhD on the development of exegetical method in Tudor England, but if we get back to the early church, I think there's a strong influence on how the fathers read the scriptures based upon the philosophical milieu in which they were raised. And many of the positions of, for example, Aristotle regarding the role of women in any kind of leadership, civil leadership, in the home, especially in religious leadership, influenced how they read the scriptures. And I think one has to be aware that we're always influenced by our culture. One of the great times in the history of the development of women in leadership is the time that immediately follows upon the scholastic period. The scholastic period is a time of high cerebral theology. It starts in the 1000s and ends in the 1300s. Probably Thomas Aquinas is the best known of the scholastic theologians. Now, immediately after that period, as we get into the 1300s, there's a remarkable change which is precipitated by many things like the Black Plague and scandals within the church. And that change is often called Christian mysticism. And we find many women who are rising up in terms of spiritual leadership. They're not recognized, they're not ordained, but the popular culture recognizes them. For example, there's a great figure in Florence named Catherine of Siena. She was born in 1347. That's the year the plague entered Europe. And she lives right through the plague years, a short 33 years, but nevertheless a lot of interaction in ways which made her remarkable in spiritual authority. For example, as a mystic, she was a nun, kind of a unique nun, but nevertheless she had taken vows, and she was willing, when priests were not, to go into a plague house and lay hands on the sick. And there were many miraculous stories of healings connected with her. She became so famous that she was able to negotiate peace treaties between Siena, or Florence, let's say, and France. In those days, Florence was a city-state. You can't imagine Florence and France going to war. But she was able to pull off a negotiation of peace between the two. So she became remarkably powerful. And there are many other examples in that same period.